on this episode of Postcards.
The ability to express ourselves as a people is at the heart of who we are, and it is probably the most important aspect of who we are, is to just be.
The boss down there says, well, that's Husby's product. He says, here we go again.
There's no real rhyme or reason to what I'm painting unless I'm doing a set series of work.
Postcards is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Additional support provided by Margaret A. Cargill Philanthropies, Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farms, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota. On the web at shalomhillfarm.org. Alexandria, Minnesota, a year-round destination with hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for memorable vacations and events. More information at explorealex.com. The Lake Region Arts Council's Arts Calendar, an arts and cultural heritage-funded digital calendar showcasing upcoming art events and opportunities for artists in West Central Minnesota. On the web at lrac4calendar.org. Playing today's new music plus your favorite hits. 96.7 Cram. Online at 967cram.com.
Well, my name is John Sterner. My Sichangu Lakota name is Mila Yuha. The Lakota word for has a knife, which is the name that was given to a great-great-great-great-grandfather a while back, and then it was given to me. A majority of my life has been spent making art. My mom and dad were having an event at the house, and my grandma was there, my unchi, and she was there to watch me. And she gave me a piece of paper, and she said, can you draw a giraffe? And I drew a giraffe. Can you draw a zebra? And I drew a zebra. Can you draw an elephant? And I drew an elephant. She asked me if I could draw a horse, and I drew a horse. She said, you know, John, that you are a Sichangu Lakota, and that means you will be an artist when you grow up. And so that's kind of the mandate that I've always had. So I'm still working on growing up, though. I'm known a lot for sculptures that I've made in Marshall. I'm kind of Marshall famous in a sense. There's Mrs. Whitney sculpture in the center of town. This is Mrs. Whitney. She is considered the mother of Marshall and chose the name of Marshall. Marshall is usually a very windy town. So I can't imagine that when she christened the town, when there was absolutely no trees, that there wouldn't have been a wind blowing that day. So everything is designed to have that movement. And if you drive down this road, she's placed so that you see her almost as a line, and then as you go around, you can see the water coming out and the wind blowing her dress. Southwest Minnesota State asked me to make a Mustang. So the first Mustang I made is actually behind the school. I fabricated that out of steel, welded it together, bent all the metal myself, did the tile work so it looks like a beaded piece. But they wanted something that looked more like a real horse instead of what you would find on the side of a teepee or in ledger art. So I constructed a real horse, which is life-size. Then it has 12 other horses behind it, fabricated out of steel, and it sits prominently at the intersection of Highway 19 and Highway 23. It's a lot of work to get a bronze sculpture. If I was going to make a traditional sculpture, it would be done in a plasticine or a water-based clay. And then when it's ready, they put a coat of plaster over it. It makes these little mother molds, they're called. They separate these molds, and when they go to, you put them back together, it'll be like my cup right here. It'll be an empty vessel. Then you melt microcrystalline brown wax, and you pour that into the vessel, and then you get it, your sculpture comes out in wax. And in this case, like the arm will be separate, this arm might be done separate, the leg might be done separate, and the body might be done. And then when they're cast in bronze, then they'll be put back together and welded together. Bronze, you can pull a Greek sculpture out of the ocean and take the barnacles off, and it's the same sculpture that it was. I mean, Mrs. Whitney, the Mustang itself, unless somebody physically blows them up and destroys them, I technically have a piece of work that's going to be here way longer than me. I had back surgery, rode too hard and put away wet too many times, and a lot of miles on my body as I wrestled and played football in college and ran track in college, and then wrestled overseas and did a lot of that. And while I was laying in a hospital, not able to sculpt things, I started painting. And I really like the outdoors. I like being outdoors. And there's a movement in the United States called plein air, which means to paint outside. Set up my easel and I paint on site, and I can do a painting in 30 minutes to 3 hours depending on what I want. I was raised, spirituality was really important. You know, my dad grew up in an orphanage and went to Boys Town, Nebraska, was raised Roman Catholic. My mom grew up Episcopalian and Lakota, so I get this really interesting mismatch of different Christian ideas and different Lakota ideas and Dakota ideas. So I incorporate them all together, and I really took it to heart when in the Bible it says, if you look for me under the rock or in the tree, you'll find me there. I look for something that causes the eye to move and make you move through the picture and imagine yourself standing in that spot. That's really what I'm looking for when I'm painting. And even when I'm sculpting, you know, I want to capture that moment of action. I was born in Flandreau, South Dakota. After about a year there, my mom and dad got a job in Hettinger, North Dakota. We moved to an all-German community. A man sat down next to my mom in a bowling alley and said the last time he had seen an Indian, he shot him. And so my mom decided that we needed to move, and the job at Southwest opened up, and so she sent the application for my dad to Southwest, and he got the job. Coming to Marshall, we had left the reservation, we had left my Indian background, and I became, at that time, one of the only people of color in the Marshall School District. When I was big into participating in sports and actively wrestling and playing football, all my paintings were of football players and wrestlers. But as I've grown older and I've really tried to figure out who I am as being half German and half Lakota, Dakota, I've really been pushing, trying to find what it means to be me. One of my favorites to sculpt is what's called Powwow Fancy Dancer, and that sits in front of the school. It was the first large sculpture I'd ever made, and it was fun because it was the realization that I was capable of doing that. I was 3 years old when I was taken to a powwow, and it would have been 1970, I think is when it was, or 1969. And you have to understand that actually having a powwow was illegal in the United States at that point. So, you know, there I am sitting on an illegal ground, and I'm looking up, and this guy comes up to me, and he's dressed in a fancy dancer dress, and he comes up and he looks right at me and looks down at me, and I can remember looking up at him, and he said, "Are you ready, son?" And I said, "Yeah." And the drum started, and he started to dance, and he stayed right in front of me. And the sculpture represents me being a 3-year-old looking up, so that's why it's 15 feet tall, because he just seemed enormous. It's an abstract form of a dancer, but all you see are these after images. And I can just remember seeing blue and orange circles just spinning, and it just was so fast, and the drum was pounding. And then there's one location where when I fabricate it, it comes together and it forms a heart. The ability to express ourselves as a people is at the heart of who we are. And it is probably the most important aspect of who we are, is to just be. So my career has been, I've been blessed to be in opportunities that people in Marshall have wanted my work to be in places, and that they've trusted me enough that I would make something that they would like. Yeah, very blessed. Pilamay Tungashila, just for the blessings of being able to have an unchi that recognized that this is what I should be doing, but also just blessed because I have this as an opportunity to express myself.
I started working full-time when I was 12. And that was when Hunt Hotel over in Montevideo. The guy that was manager at that time hired me because he figured that I was big enough and strong enough when I was 12 to do what was necessary down there. In less than a month, he got drafted and it was gone. His wife, Gladys, became the manager of the hotel and stayed that way. She hated driving. She had a nice new General Motors car. And so I said, well, I can always try it. And she objected to that for a while, but decided she couldn't afford to hire anybody else to do it. The first guy that got wind of that was the chief of police in Monty. He'd come over and he'd say, now, you're a little young. Do you have a driver's license? And I said, no, I'm not old enough to get one. He says, well, I got to make you out one. So I got a handwritten driver's license from the chief of police over there at that time. As soon as I got out of high school, I got involved at the University of Minnesota. I didn't spend any more than about a month to 2 months down there. And my dad got a notice that the draft board in Montevideo had my number coming up the following week, and I better decide if I wanted the Army or the Navy. And I chose the Navy, and a whole carload of us went from Monty and from the Dakotas to San Diego. After the war was over, I got out in the middle part of '48. And that's when I met Bev on a blind date when I got back from the Navy. We had a real good time that night because we went to a carnival, a couple of dances in Monty, and then she agreed she'd try a second date that was real between just the two of us. And we did that a week later and took the train to Minneapolis and spent down there. She was a lot of fun. I got married here in Madison.
Your Westinghouse dealer's having a gala fiesta with really big buys on all these wonderful products.
That's right, it's the Westinghouse Desi Lucy Fiesta Values.
Look for the stores with the fiesta decorations and these signs in the doors and windows.
Oh, we're having a gala fiesta. It's a Desi Lucy Fiesta. When a Westinghouse buys at the fiesta.
Remember, you can be sure if it's Westinghouse.
When I got to Westinghouse, They put me in an engineering operation, mostly having to do with lighting fixtures. And I designed a lot of small residential fixtures that are still in use. The one that I got a patent on, which was really used all over this town and most of the rest of them. I did optical systems for 100 watt, 250, 1,000 watt street lights and floodlights. The distribution floodlights for major league fields were 1,000 and 1,500 watt in those days. I did a couple of major league fields in New York City, and I did the one in Philadelphia. The one I had the most fun in is Three River Stadium in Pittsburgh. When they were starting to install the first fixtures, they were having lots of trouble in trying to maintain them. They did not like what was being done by other stadiums, and that's to maintain all of the floodlights from the rear. They had to redesign the floodlights so that they could service it all from the side or from the front. It drove the factory nuts that was making the floodlights. The boss down there says, well, that's Husby's product. He says, here we go again. But they put up with it. I redesigned the fixture so that it could be serviced from the side and relamped from the side.
What's the need for all this floodlighting, Steve?
Well, Paul, you've got to remember that nighttime is the only time during the week that many folks can play. Studies made in 12 communities, about the same size as ours, show that courts and ball fields get at least 25% more use with floodlighting installed.
Everything that I've worked on, I got patents for. I just like to work on everything that presented itself. We had lots of fun in those days.
I did go to art school. I started out at MCTC in Minneapolis. Once I got to MCTC, there were students that were just, their brains were kind of wired for creativity, and I wasn't quite there to keep up with them. And then I moved out to Boston. So I was rollerblading one day and came across the Mass College of Art, and actually took off my rollerblades and wore the rollerblade boot. I don't know if you remember the boot that came out. That's what I used for shoes to get into the school, to have something on my feet. And went into the admissions offices, was just kind of asking them what this was all about, because I had never been inside of a fully functioning art-only college. Ended up meeting the president in the lobby, and she thought it was funny. So I built a little friendship where I would rollerblade over there, and then she advised me to start going to Saturday classes at a small art community center just to build a portfolio and then submit it and apply. And I was able to get into their continuing education program. And at this point, I still haven't picked up a paintbrush. It was only live drawings at the art center, and ended up getting into their, my focus was industrial design. And so again, fast forward a year, I still haven't painted. And I think that I might have finished the time that I did at Mass College of Art, maybe with painting twice, maybe. The first time I really did a canvas painting was 2004 or 2005. I had been trying to get an industrial design job and trying to get design work, because that's what I focused on in Boston, and nothing was panning out. So my roommate said, why don't I try painting? And I did get upset with him and said, you know, why would I throw away all of those hundreds and thousands of hours in the computer lab that I did. He came home one day on his own accord, went out and bought 3 4x5 foot canvases. They were all plastic wrapped, and he's pulling them down our long hallway. And I just looked around the corner and was like, you've got to be kidding. And he's like, you got to think big, and all this, you know, talk, whatever. We sold all 4 of the 5-foot paintings inside of 2 weeks. I typically do modern and abstract artwork, usually on canvas or mixed media. Now I'm getting into shoes and clothing. I'm most known for trying new techniques, such as painting on golf tees, wine corks, and canvas is what I'm most known for, especially around Minneapolis. Cityscapes are one of my favorite topics to paint because of my travel. I like to travel into cities, and I have been traveling as early as 15 to Chicago by myself. So I've just always been drawn to skylines and cities and the architecture. A few of my favorite things to do in Minneapolis are enjoying the rooftop bars, definitely the parks, with taking our little kiddo out to the numerous parks that we have downtown. A cool chapter of my life has been being reintroduced to my birth family in Colombia. It's just been really nice to be reacquainted with my brothers and sisters and communicating with them now. It was an idea from my sister's son's soccer teammate who was Mexican and said, if you ever want to find your family, I mean, this is a no-brainer. You just advertise on the local radio station. Pay them the DJs to shout out the name, date of birth, any other information. And they were able to find our family, I think within, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 days. It's been a journey of finding them, and my sister was the one who initiated the whole journey. I just supported her. I have been to my birth town, and it's a beautiful setting. It's mountainous and rural, but I'm more drawn to the cities. We're in my studio right now, and it's above our 2-door garage. It didn't come with the house. My wife designed it, and then it was built out. Having a space to go to without a rush hour commute you just can't beat it. I'm usually working on 5 to 7 paintings, maybe 8 paintings at a time. Sometimes they just get shelved for a bit of time, and then I can usually pick them back up even if it's been a year or 2. That's not a huge problem. There's no real rhyme or reason to what I'm painting, unless I'm doing a set series of work. Most of these, they're a female series of paintings, and then I have a continued series of cityscapes and skylines that I do. I could see myself enjoying trying new mediums like I have enjoyed the shoes a lot. This has been really fun actually, and I've been able to do it with my son, getting him involved, watching him enjoy the experience. I'll keep pushing new limits.
This song's about loving where you're at, but wanting something different. I want to leave Minnesota, head out west west to LA. I wanna go, leave tomorrow, hit the road, but I won't. I'm too afraid. I wanna leave Minnesota. I wanna see the Pacific coast. I wanna be where the land meets the sea, but I won't. No, I won't. 'Cause when I get there, I'll be wrong. And I'll want to come back home. And when I get off the plane, I'll be wanting to be on again. And I'll be back in Minnesota before too long. I wanna leave Minnesota. I wanna travel to far off lands. I wanna taste the salty air far away, but I won't. 'Cause I just can't. When I get there, I'll be wrong. And I'll want to come back home. And when I get off the plane, I'll be wanting to get on again. And I'll be back in Minnesota before too long. I'll be back in Minnesota before too long. Yes, I'll be back in Minnesota before too long.
Postcards is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Additional support provided by Margaret A. Cargill Philanthropies, Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farms, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota. On the web at shalomhillfarm.org. Alexandria, Minnesota, a year-round destination with hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for memorable vacations and events. More information at explorealex.com. The Lake Region Arts Council's Arts Calendar, an arts and cultural heritage funded digital calendar showcasing upcoming art events and opportunities for artists in West Central Minnesota. On the web at lrac4calendar.org. Playing today's new music plus your favorite hits, 96.7 Cram. Online at 967cram.com.